Daily, where we're always excited to bring up Otto Graham at the top of the show. I'm Gregg Rosenthal here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with my friend Patrick Claybon. Eric Roberts behind the glass, just coming over from SoFi, seeing one of the games of the year. And yes, Nick Shook in Cleveland, you dirty dog. You took this game from us, Shook, and you were the one covering the score fest that was Rams-Bills today.
Yeah, I took the game from you, but I also gave you the opportunity to go cover your favorite player in the history of football, Geno Smith.
Okay.
I think it was a fair trade.
We'll get to that. That's a good tease. We're going NFC West heavy at the top of the show. And I mentioned Otto Graham's name because Josh Allen did something that no one's done since Otto Graham. Surely that would be enough to win the game, right? Let's go over to SoFi.
To go in regulation. Stafford from the shotgun, looking left, throws right, receiver screen, caught, blocked, touchdown, Puka Nacua, touchdown LA, with 1:54 remaining, a receiver screen for a 2-possession lead over the Buffalo Bills.
That is our friend JB Long on KSPN. Yes, Puka Nacua on another brilliant play call from Sean McVay. More brilliant execution from the blockers on the outside. They're so good at that. And yes, this receiver going 12 for 162 and a touchdown through the air. Also one on the ground. There just aren't many receivers like Puka Nacua. There's not many players like Matthew Stafford. There's not many players like Josh Allen who might have helped his MVP case on a day where they didn't win. 44-42 is the final. The Rams pull off the upset. Patrick called it all week long.
That's something.
And yet, we go to you, Shook. When you drill down and think about this game, how did the Rams do it? What was the difference between these two excellent quarterbacks?
Man, the Rams made every play that they needed to make to get the lead that they needed to outlast the Bills. It was the first drive, was like a haymaker, a 12-play, 70-yard march that ends in a Kyren Williams touchdown run. And it's just back and forth, back and forth. Then they get the punt block, and suddenly they're up by 10 points. That was the difference. They needed to have just enough breathing room to stay out in front of this Bills offense that we know can be very explosive with Josh Allen. Matthew Stafford has a season-high 320 passing yards in a season in which he's been very up and down, very hard to pin down. He was very solid today, and they came through in the clutch. They faced a 4th and 5 on that drive, a couple plays that preceded that Puka Nacua touchdown. Stafford drops back. Tom Brady's already second-guessing the decision to go for it on 4th and 5, but as we know, the worst place to be in football is up 6 with a few minutes left to go, and Sean McVay says, we're not getting stuck in that position. We're going for it. Stafford drops. He fires a sidearm rocket over the middle to Tutu Atwell. Perfect pass, perfect timing, first down. They did everything they needed to in the biggest spots, and that's how you beat a team like the Buffalo Bills. Home field advantage or not, that was what they needed to deliver, and they did.
And it took a lot. It took a lot of effort. The last time the Bills lost the game, it was back in Week 5 to the Texans, where Josh Allen had that 9 of 30 game. This decidedly not a Josh Allen 9 of 30 game. One of the better games that we've seen Josh Allen play, which is saying something considering the caliber of football player that it is. And so Bills fans aren't going to blame their generational quarterback. They're going to look back to that decision that happened a couple of plays before Puka Nacua goes into the end zone. There's a 3rd down where the Rams are called for a holding. You can either decline the holding penalty and make it 4th and 7, or you could take the holding penalty, make it 3rd and 17. They took the penalty. Stafford gets one completion. He gets the completion that Shook was mentioning to Tutu Atwell. They go on to score, and then after they score that touchdown, the Bills drive down the field with no timeouts. They get a 2nd and goal on the 1-yard line, and they elect to go for a quarterback sneak, and they don't get it, so they have to use a timeout, which necessitates the onside kick, which leads to the Rams win.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus in Buffalo and nationally on how Sean McDermott finished that game. I get it. McDermott hasn't been good in those spots before. It was the wrong decision to call the timeout there. The sneak, to me, is understandable.
Yeah.
Just because it's Josh Allen and it's such a successful play and you're on the one and maybe you're thinking the Rams are thinking that you're going to throw it there to save your timeouts and save the time. That said, when they lined up, it was obvious what they were going to do, and the Rams stuffed it earlier in the game, and you have to give the Rams credit for stuffing it. This was a game with very few great defensive plays, and they did something not many people have done in that spot. They stuffed it. The problem is then taking the timeout. You could have lined back up and then run a play, and you would have lost 15 seconds, but even then, 15, 20 seconds is less valuable than that timeout because that forced them having to go for an onside kick. I just think, Nick, in a game where these two quarterbacks were that good, making that the focus is just missing the forest for the trees, because the Bills had a very long shot to win in that scenario anyways. There is very little about this game that would have indicated they're about to get a 3-and-out when the Rams know that they need to get a first down. We just saw it. The Rams were picking up first downs when they absolutely needed to. That last drive that they went on was a 6-minute, 55-second drive where they killed him. So I would have expected Stafford to get it done in the end anyways, no matter what McDermott did, because the Bills' defense, if you want to point fingers, that's where the problem is. And some of these plays, you can't even point the finger at the defense. You said solid out of Stafford. This wasn't my game, but man, every other time I looked up, there were otherworldly throws. The 19-yard out he had to Puka, the no-look he had a deep one to Cup. I mean, Stafford was absolutely sensational, and our friend Jordan Rodriguez is killing herself because she took him off quarterback island, and we supported him, and he goes out there and he just absolutely balls out. So it's pretty amazing to outshine Josh Allen on a day like this, Shook.
Yeah, and I've been wanting something like this from him all season because he's just been so volatile. But it was beautiful to see. It was beautiful to see him and Sean McVay working in tandem like we've known them to do over the last few years, and doing so effectively against a team that you knew you were going to have to put up a lot of points against. But to go back to what you were talking about, the idea that you were going to get off the field in the final defensive possession if you actually kept your timeouts, not going to happen. The Rams were 11 for 15 on third down today, and a lot of that was because of Matthew Stafford and the type of performance he had. It's interesting because they're 7-6 now. They're still in the hunt in the NFC West, a division that still doesn't want to sort itself out. And there's been multiple times where the Rams have been right on the precipice of taking a dirt nap, of us burying them for the season. Yet each time they find a way to fight back, get back in the conversation with wins like this. And this is the best one they've had all season. I know there was a lot of points the defense wasn't really there, but it was the best one they had all season. And it just reminds us they're not going away. We have to take them seriously no matter who they play for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it was a moment that they had to have. They go to San Francisco on Thursday night. We'll get to the rest of the division shortly, but they are right in it. So many crazy stats in this game. I mentioned Otto Graham. So Josh Allen, first quarterback with 3 touchdowns passing and 3 touchdowns rushing since Otto Graham. Ya boy, Shook. I mean, they say the Browns haven't won, titles. They were winning titles like crazy. And for every list that you do the greatest of all time or whatever, and you're trying to do it irrespective of era. If you look at Otto Graham's Pro Football Reference page, and you know that they black out anytime you're leading the league in that category, all of his categories are black. There is no other quarterback that has led the league in everything to even the fraction of a degree of Otto Graham. So just shout out to Otto Graham.
Shout out to Otto Graham.
I know it was a totally different sport back then, but he truly did dominate it in a way that other quarterbacks probably never have. So it's cool when a guy like Josh Allen can bring his name up, Shooky.
I got to slide in one more trivia question for you. You guys know I like to do this.
Okay.
Otto Graham wore 2 numbers. Hide that Pro Football Reference page.
Okay.
His second number was 14. What was his first jersey number?
I don't know, man. It was probably something stupid if you're telling me. 79 or something.
Was.
Yeah.
60. It was 60.
out there balling, wearing 60 at the quarterback spot.
I think it's pretty clear to look at Stafford since Puka Nacua has come back and before, because one of the reasons I was surprised Jordan was the one that brought up to pick off Stafford, because I thought Stafford was playing better over the last few weeks. Now, I totally supported it too, but she wanted to point out it was the right decision at the time, but she totally regrets it now. But also, he unlocks some of Sean McVay's creativity. Right now, Puka Nacua has 83 yards after being the guy in motion since he's come back. That's more than double anyone else in the entire NFL. Their whole offense is kind of Puka Nacua in motion and setting him up. Jordan pointed out a really clever play where they ran the same screen touchdown the last 2 weeks in a row to Nacua, but they invert where the splits are and the alignments, and they just change these little things, but they call the same play, and then it works, and the defense doesn't know it. Jordan, actually, let's throw to her in the press room. over across the street.
Sean, you've seen just about every game possible from Puka Nacua in just 2 3/4 season, or 1 3/4 seasons at this point. Did he reach a new level for you tonight?
He was such an igniter today. I thought, obviously, Matthew was in total command. I thought Kyron and Blake both had some really tough, hard-earned runs. I thought the line were straining a little bit, but, Puka, for him to come up the way that he did, ultimately to be able to cap that drive off that put us up 9 points. Love to be able to get the extra point there, but he was awesome, and then he's, the artist gave me a good stat. Now he's giving me all types of stats after he missed Cooper Kupp. He's like, hey, how about this? What the hell are you talking about? First player in Rams history to go over 160 receiving and have a rushing touchdown. Who the hell comes up with that number right there? All right, but that was, he was awesome.
Facts. And he was singularly the reason that I was taking the Rams in this game. I felt confident that Puka would be able to get open and have success. Look at his route combinations, crosses, wide receiver screens, run 5 of them, 3 outs, a hitch, a slant, an in, a corner. He does it all for this team. He does everything. And the Bills, talent-wise, and again, Puka Nacua is an elite wide receiver. He's better than a whole lot of folks. I think the Bills have an issue covering elite wide receivers. If not for the Nico Collins injury, I think Nico would have had a huge game. And again, this is a game the Rams barely won. And the Bills are a very good team. But in this particular aspect, I think
you called it. It's a rare Patrick peacocking. No, not a rare Patrick win. But I mean, you talking about your own good pick. It took a lot. Look, this is the first time in NFL history that 2 teams had this many touchdowns without any giveaways. This, according to Next Gen Stats, I think our guy Dante pointed out, teams were 245-0 with 6 touchdowns and 0 giveaways until the Bills lost this game. So an awesome offensive performance, Eric, you saw across the street before heading out here with your baby and your bride.
Yes, my 6-month-old baby was there to watch the Rams upset the Bills, and it was fun though. It was great. It was a great game. Walking over from there, I was here before the game, and I walked over. I saw some Rams fans, and I was like, hey, I just want points. I want points. I want to have a good time. But in that scenario in my head, the Bills win. But Walker Rosenthal got it. Every play they needed, I'm watching 17 on the line, and he was there. The catch on the sideline, toe tap, it's a catch of the year candidate. He was nasty all game, and it was fun. It was a good time. I go to these games. I try not to be. I'm not an analyst. I'm not on that side of the glass, guys. I watch. I have fun. It was a good time. But
sucks. Hey, you got your Dodgers hat on. They're world champs. As losses go, it's not a conference loss. Obviously, it damages their chances to get the 1 seed, but they already have their division championship in their pocket. They will regroup. This division race, however, in the NFC West is just getting going. The Rams made their statement. Would the Seahawks match it and keep the lead to Arizona?
Hand off Charbonnet, left side, has a first down and then some. He's down to the 30, the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Seahawks! And they are still chasing Zach Charbonnet. 49 yards to pay dirt, his 2nd touchdown of the game. The Seahawks came in saying, we got to find a way to run the ball. Holy catfish, they do.
Holy catfish. When Steve Rabel is getting excited and surprised, it's a great Sunday for me. And maybe he's a little more surprised because it was the running game that helped lead the way. I'm telling you, Zach Charbonnet, monster game. They end up going for 176 yards on the ground. By far the best effort from one of the worst running games in the league this season. The Seahawks get it done in Arizona, 30-18 to stay atop the NFC West race. Yes, they're at 8-5. The Rams are at 7-6. More on that later, but the Cardinals, really a devastating 3-game losing streak for them. The heartbreaker in Minnesota, sandwiched around 2 losses to the Seahawks, where ultimately, just watching this game, I just think it's not a fair fight. The Seahawks players are way better. And after Kyler Murray started out so strong, so sharp on the first drive, one of his best drives of the season, a number of really clutch tight throws, including a long touchdown throw. He makes a mistake where Ernest Jones, who's just been such a good pickup, baits him into this pick where he has to flip his hips, and that one interception really changed the game to me. After that, it's Derek Hall, it's Devin Weatherspoon, and you look on the other side of the field, it's Jackson Smith and Jigba making a great individual play. Geno was solid, but it didn't need to be an amazing Geno game. And I look at these two teams, and I just think your search bar, Patrick, has been overachieving. Yeah. But if you just stack up, like if you're making a draft between these two teams, the Seahawks have way more good players, and they now have a coaching staff that I think knows how to use them. The line play for both sides for Seattle on the offensive side and the defensive side getting a lot better.
And not just the difference in the qualities of the roster top to bottom, but the Seahawks went out and improved the roster. You mentioned the Ernest Jones play, where it's just very difficult. It's hard enough to play quarterback in the NFL, but to see a linebacker spin and take a step in the opposite direction, and on the broadcast angle, it's like, oh, well, Kyler didn't see him. No, he saw him. He just didn't think he was there anymore. And he comes back and makes a play. Kobe Bryant cuts a ball later on. That was Kyler's second interception. And so many opportunities as the game went on where the Seahawks in the past on this season have made mistakes, turnovers, fumbles. Geno will throw a pick, snaps going over heads. There was none of that. Just sustained drives to keep the Cardinals from being able to have a comeback, and just a good, solid Seahawks game. This is the Seahawks team we were promised, Shook.
The Seahawks team we were promised. I think it's an interesting comparison between the two teams, because I think the Cardinals have played above their head, and that's what's made them, fun to watch. But deep down, that's kind of the nexus of the search bar, is that like we have to look up the names of these guys. Like they're playing better than they should. So then you face a team with a better roster, and this is kind of what happens, which is what you guys just touched on. But it's also this trend the Seahawks have been on, this path they've been following for the last few weeks, which is Jackson Smith and Jigma making big plays. Geno doing a good job as a quarterback who doesn't have to go win the game, but does a good job of keeping the ship steady. The defense continuing to play better and better. That's how they beat them 2 weeks ago. That's how part of why they beat them today. You bounce back from leading that giving up that touchdown drive, and you get 2 picks, and then the offense goes out and turns that into 2 touchdowns, and suddenly you've got yourself an advantage. That's a team that's playing very cohesively, but the missing element this whole time has been the running game. And that really, I think, is what the difference is, and why they're down by so many points. They're down by 17 points in the middle of the third quarter, because the running game finally shows up for the Seahawks, which shows us their potential. Maybe not quite their peak, but that range of what their peak could be if everything like that is working. That's super encouraging for them, and it kind of gives us a definitive statement on the difference between these two teams and where they are over the last few years, which is the Seahawks have been a team that's, made the playoffs and been contending to a degree, and then they change head coaches and they make some personnel changes. They get better in the offseason, and this is why they're at 8-5 now, right? And then the Cardinals, they're in year 2 with Gannon. Like they're still early on in this whole process, and Kyler makes them fun, but they're not quite there in a personnel standpoint overall, which is why you get a 30-18 final. But I caution Cardinals fans, don't get so discouraged, because I think that this team still plays hard. You just see in games like this how far away you are from joining the real contenders in your division.
Well, you wanted to be playing really meaningful football the last couple of weeks of the season, and you still have a chance. You have the Patriots and Panthers the next 2 weeks, I believe. If you can win those 2 games, and Panthers are not an easy game anymore, you get to 8-7. Right now, though, they have a 10% playoff chance. Getting swept by the Seahawks was devastating to their chances, because they're 2 games back of the Seahawks, but it's essentially 3 because of the tiebreaker with 4 games to go. Do the math. This was kind of a death blow for them, I believe, because I don't think Seattle's going to totally fall back to the pack. Their offensive line has absolutely changed since they got Abe Lucas back at right tackle. I do think if I'm watching this game as Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator, and I just see Charbonnet, who's kind of a no-nonsense runner, I want more of him and less of Ken Walker. Ken Walker's a great player, but I just want that to either be closer to a 50-50 split, or maybe it's Ken Walker as the change of pace, because you just need to keep them on schedule, and he's so boomer bust. Even Kenny McIntosh, he goes 7 for 38 today. So they were getting it going, and Ken Walker would break some big plays in this game too. I just mean that they both need to be involved. I think Charbonnet's a really steadying force, and it's all good. When you play better up front, then you're going to be better. The one concern I think for the Cardinals more long-term is Charles Davis is on the call, and he's talking about how when they got into long yardage situations, and there were a lot today, and that helped the Seahawks cook up what was going on with the Kyler. It was like, we don't have any guys that can win one-on-one. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking, like, you need some guys who can win in man coverage, who can win one-on-one. I'm thinking, I mean, you did take a receiver in the top 5.
I think he can. I think the scheme doesn't quite work for him.
Okay.
Like the attempts to get him the football are never really like good opportunities for him to make a play. It's kind of desperation stuff.
Okay.
And then when they get behind the schedule on third down, it's a lot of just Kyler trying to make a hero play or just praying for a miracle. That's been them the whole year. That's why the running game has mattered so much.
I think it's totally fair to be patient with Marvin Harrison. I think he's going to be a very, very good pro. But I also think it's fair to say if I was doing the draft again, I would take Malik Neighbors over him. I would take Brock Bowers over him.
And not to be dismissive.
It's okay.
It's just praise for those guys.
Yeah.
Right? Especially considering the situation where you just need layups. Everything can't be a home run ball to Marv. And you throw a screen to Malik, have Brock Bowers running any of the 27 different routes and variations that he does. Maybe that does more for the offense. But, I mean, we're still talking about a Cardinals team that is undermanned in many different capacities.
Yes, but they were so close. They really could have / should have won that Minnesota game. I doubt Sean McVay was watching Greg Olsen talk about the Cardinals when they kicked that field goal to go up 6 last week. But I was thinking about it when the Rams made the opposite decision in this game, and it's like the Cardinals could have won that game, but they're obviously not stacking up. The Seahawks have won 4 straight. They get the Packers on Sunday Night Football next week, and then they get the Vikings after that. So this division is not going to be easy for them to win. They have a very tough schedule. They play the Rams in Week 18. There's a real solid chance that's going to decide the division, and that's the final Sunday Night Football game of the year. I'm just throwing that out there a month in advance, although you never know. Maybe the 49ers will get back in the mix in this division. Let's go to Santa Clara.
12th play of the drive on the Chicago 16-yard line. 3rd down and 4. Purdy out of the shotgun. Looks right. Throws. Caught. Juwan Jennings diving into the end zone. Touchdown! San Francisco!
Oh, that's our friend Greg Papa. KNBR. Juwan Jennings. He's back. He never really left. Couple touchdowns for him on the day, 7 catches, 90 yards. George Kittle goes crazy. The 49ers win 38-13, Patrick, in a game that had the most dominant first half I can ever remember. I mean, maybe it's happened. You could come up with the stats. But it was 320 yards for the 49ers and 4 for the Chicago Bears.
And it was very reminiscent of the Thanksgiving game against the Detroit Lions, where if not for a late push at the end of the first half, it would have been a similar type set of dominance. And then they go out and have another game just like that, where the Bears are almost non-existent in the first half. Meanwhile, George Kittle has 5 catches for 138 yards. And I'm Googling how many yards Shannon Sharp had in his yardage record for a tight end game. They didn't really need it. Brock Purdy was 16 of 18 in the first half, had a 155.8 passer rating. And the Bears come out second half. The offense exists at the very least. Caleb hits Rome Odunze for 2 touchdowns. But this was a game where Isaac Guerendo eventually left the game, and so Patrick Taylor and Deebo Samuel are the remaining ball carriers. But despite all that, Brock Purdy left this game as well. Hobbled
he
to the
took a
sideline.
nasty hit. He came back in, though.
Low and high. Could not look, and like even the weird injury predictor doctors who diagnose on video on Twitter probably couldn't even tell you what was going on with Brock. But he comes back into the game, and Brock was good. The 49ers are good. Thought that the Bears would perhaps get the coaching firing bump. Did not work out for Thomas Brown.
No, I wonder if the coach firing bump, it confused us here because it happened when they fired the offensive coordinator a couple weeks ago, and it just didn't happen because they did get a bump offensively for about 3 weeks, but not here. I mean, the 49ers came into this game shook, having lost the last 2 by a combined 73 points. They didn't have Trent Williams in the game. They did not have Nick Bosa in the game, and yet, Guerendo ends up going for 128 yards from scrimmage, had a couple long catches, actually, in addition to running the ball really well before he left with an injury. And it's just a bloodbath, and suddenly you think, okay, they're 6-7, and they have a quarterback, and they're not out of this division race either.
I think that you can't, like, how many rungs on a ladder can a coach climb in a season in order to get the bump both times? Because he already climbed once to offensive coordinator. He's climbed to interim head coach. I don't think you can get the bump twice. You can't double dip there. So not surprised. I am surprised that it was as lopsided as it was, just because I thought the Bears would bring more fight on the defensive side against a Niners team that has looked completely overmatched in recent weeks. On the flip side, I really needed this type of game from Brock Purdy because he has just not looked largely like himself over the last few weeks. So much it hurt my heart when I dropped him in QB index this week. I was like, I don't want to put him down there, but he just hasn't done enough.
How far did you
really
put him down?
Prove it. He fell out of the top 10, I'll tell you that. I can't even remember off the top of my head. He's like mid-teens. And this is the type of game that'll make him climb back up. And it's, again, because he's able to use the weapons around him. He's able to use the George Kittles of the world, and Juwan Jennings, and Garendo pops off in his first start. A start that he talked about during the week as being he's very prepared for, and he's excited to show what he could do. Well, he showed it today. And I also caution that this may be some fool's gold, because the 49ers team that we saw in the previous weeks is still the team that I think they are. Ultimately, they come back and get a really nice bounce back win, but then they got to play the Rams, the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Cardinals. Two of those are division games. It's going to be a tough battle for them. So I'm not going to make any guarantees that like they're going to climb back in the race. But for 1 week, it was really nice to see those gold helmets actually put up a fight and dominate a team, as opposed to getting dominated so soundly like they'd been in recent weeks.
I do have one case for optimism. They got Talanoa Hufanga back for the first time since week 5, able to play this game. Of course, he had the injury late last season, missed the run to the Super Bowl, where the defense has had significant problems. They've had guys missing time. Getting him back, perhaps we'll see an improvement on the defensive side.
Well, it sets up a really intriguing Thursday Night Football, which is all I'm rooting for at this time of year, is for the game results to keep setting up the games to have ascending and important value, especially in those primetime windows. And yeah, it's a do-or-die game for the 49ers. You have to win that game if you're the 49ers, and it's obviously very important for the Rams trying to win this division. But it does at least set it up on Thursday night, where if you can then win that game against the Rams, you have a chance. Kyle Shanahan, after the game, was asked about the talk about whether he could get traded or, about his commitment. And he just said there's no place in the world that he'd rather be more than there. And his family feels just as strong as him, if not stronger. The GM John Lynch also dismissed the topic as comical. He's not going anywhere, guys. And for what it's worth, and it's not much, but I do love a little salty, unnamed source quote, even if it's not that believable. Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune had a quote from a source that said, Kyle prefers one of these two quarterbacks pretty strongly, and just left it at that. And I think he's talking about Brock Purdy. He's talking about the guy who we probably, deserved to be kicked off QB Island, but both him and Stafford with strong responses after being kicked off.
Yeah.
So he prefers Brock Purdy to Caleb Williams, I think was the subtext of this source.
Yes. Source close to the 49ers, not really. Close to the 49ers today, at least. Yeah. Kyle Shanahan likes Brock Purdy. Breaking news.
Right. They will be giving Brock Purdy that bag and that money soon enough, no matter what happens down the stretch. We're just getting going. We started the show with a little NFC West talk. We're going to come back from the break with one of the most exciting narrative games of the year in many different ways. Yeah, we're talking Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota.
Three receivers right. Sam Darnold out of the shotgun. Jones picks up a blitzer. Pass right. Caught Addison to the end zone. Touchdown! Jordan Addison makes it 34-21. And for Sam Darnold, that's a high five.
Great call there by our friend Paul Allen at KFAN. Yes, Sam Darnold throws for 5 touchdowns, only had 6 incompletions, 347 yards. Oh, he must have been dunking it down the field if you only had 5 incompletions. No, he had 3 plays over 40 yards, had another long PI. This man was dealing. He got Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson monster fantasy days, and on a day where you watch Kirk Cousins throw a couple more interceptions, it's hard not to compare the two, because the difference in this game was, number one, turnovers. The Falcons turned over 3 times, including a fumble on a kick return in that fourth quarter where the Vikings outscore the Falcons 21-0. Yes, this was a tie game going into the fourth quarter. The Falcons outgained the Vikings overall and were dominant yardage-wise in the first half of this game. So it was not as one-sided as the final score indicated. But the difference was those turnovers, of which Kirk played a prominent part, and Sam Darnold didn't even sniff like a near interception today. And then it was Sam Darnold's ability to win versus pressure and win versus the blitz. This has been a theme all season, but that play that he made to evade pressure and then find Jefferson down the field was fantastic. He ends up going 4 for 6 for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns against pressure. The numbers are very similar against the blitz, and that was the difference. The quarterback who makes all the plays that you asked for him, and now he's making even more shook. Like Darnold is I'm here. I'm not on the island anymore. Like I cannot doubt Sam Darnold in any way, shape, or form the way he is.
What a turn!
I mean, what can I do? You just got to watch the ball. This is the ball. Try to know the ball.
You got to watch the ball.
Exactly.
You got to see the ball. And Sam Darnold is playing the ball right now, and he's playing it well. He plays well under pressure. That's been the biggest step, I think, in this season for him in his growth, is that the pressure, he's no longer seeing ghosts. He is now confident under pressure and still delivers, especially in key moments. I mean, there was that Cardinals game where he ripped a couple passes down the seam, one of them to Jefferson to set up that comeback. And then today, by the way, I'm going to pitch this right now. They have that big, obnoxious horn that I hate in Minnesota. How about let's add something else to the repertoire? An explosion. A sound that is like an explosion. A bomb going off. Because that's what happened in the fourth quarter of this game. It was tied at 28-28. Or 21-21, excuse me. And it ends up 42-21. They explode. They drop a bomb on the Falcons.
I think the horn is their thing.
Touchdown.
I vote to keep the horn. I like the
horn and bomb. Bomb can be just occasional after the third touchdown. Fumble, interception, downs are the last 3 possessions for the Falcons. Touchdown, end of game for the Vikings. That is how you make a statement and prove that you're in the better spot than Kirk Cousins' current team.
Yeah, and ultimately, it may just be Kirk Cousins that turns out to be the difference in these 2 teams.
Okay, this is getting a little intense here. It's getting a little intense.
Well, the bomb was about to go off.
Daddy.
The Vikings were about to use the combustibles to get things going and do more pillaging and plundering over on the other side, where Sam Darnold, to continue the Darnold discussion, on the run, which is next-gen stats tracks throws where you're running 8 miles an hour or above, didn't have a single incompletion, threw for 112 yards and a touchdown, a perfect passer rating.
Let's listen to the touchdown to Jefferson that I was talking about.
JJ in motion to the right. 3rd and 8. Minnesota 6 of 11 on 3rd down. Sam under a lot of pressure. How'd you get away from that? Now he throws deep. Justin wide open. Caught. Touchdown! Justin Jefferson with a 48-yard reception. But Sam Darnold was Houdini for the day. And the Vikings have taken a 20-13 lead.
That play was so typical of this game because it was a 3rd and 8 where Falcons get pressure. I promise you, the Falcons did so many things well in this game. They pressured Sam Darnold consistently until the 4th quarter. But before that, the pressure rate was at like 50%. Still finished almost at 40, which is very high. They got 4 sacks of Sam Darnold. Kirk Cousins, outside the 2 interceptions, did play well. He threw for 344. A lot of those throws were down the field, and the 2 interceptions were totally on him and killed what was otherwise a good performance. But he did make a lot of positive plays, and Raheem Morris pointed that out after the fact that he was playing better. But the secondary of the Falcons, there's no answer when you have to double cover Jefferson. You got guys falling all over the place. Meanwhile, Addison's going 8 for 133 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and Jordan Addison caught a lot of those balls with defenders draped on him. Poor D. Alford on the Justin Jefferson play. If you're watching the broadcast, you look up because Sam Darnold gets away from pressure. He throws the ball. Alford is futility diving at least 17 yards away from Justin Jefferson. And the reason that happened, because if you look at the All-22, Jefferson's open very early.
Yes.
His arm is up the whole way. So all Alford sees is the best receiver in the NFL running by himself. So he just puts his head down. He has no idea where the ball is. He just hears the crowd and dives in a random direction, which makes for great television. It's frustrating for the Falcons defense, which, like you mentioned, so 5 sacks of Justin Herbert. 4 sacks of Sam Darnold. They've almost equaled their season sack production in these last 2 games. Whatever Raheem Morris figured out in the bye, it's been great. The problem is the quarterback can't sustain drives and make key plays when they need him to make them.
Right. The running game was fantastic for the Falcons today as well. 158 on the ground. Bijan goes 22 for 92. Algier had a couple outstanding runs today, ends up with 63 on the ground. And Mooney goes deep. It was a little too much Ray McLeod for my own liking, and he had the fumble on the return, but he goes 8 for 98. There wasn't that much separating, but it kind of points out like one of these teams is 11-2 and has a real chance to be the 1 seed still in the NFC, that they just find ways to win. I mean, I watched Kevin O'Connell's post-games locker room speech thinking we'll get something from it. It's like 5 minutes long, and he hands out 15 game balls because there's just so many guys that are awesome on this team right now. He can't help himself. You're right. Addison has turned into 170 pounds, one of the best contested catch receivers in the league, and Jefferson has a monster game. Cashman made a bunch of plays, and yes, Kirk Cousins has 8 interceptions and 4 fumbles over the last 4 weeks, which is absolutely brutal. Raheem Morris was asked again after the game if he's thinking about changing his quarterback.
Kirk Cousins is our quarterback. We'll have the ability to go watch this tape just like we do every single week. You know, Kirk played significantly better than he did the week before. We got a chance to go out there and focus on us and get a chance to go out there and really work on what we do and what we do well. And we'll do whatever is best to go win football games, and Kirk's definitely a part of that.
We've come just 3-4 weeks away from the Falcons seemingly having an insurmountable lead in the NFC South, and we'll get to the Bucs later, but they've blown it, and there's still 4 weeks to go. They're not out of it yet because their schedule, after a tough stretch, finally does open up. The toughest team they play the rest of the way is at Washington, so division race is not over, and Kirk is going to be the one leading the charge, but my God, there's something special happening in Minnesota this season. It is time now for the Sunday Drive presented by the all-new hybrid Toyota Camry. Didn't think that the Panthers would have a chance to be making a game-winning drive in Philadelphia, but they had a chance.
Trips right, low receiver to the far side. Can the Eagles win the game right here? Back goes Young. He's being chased. He's running with the football. Still pumping, running, firing, and it's banged down. Eagles win.
Slay
knocks it down.
Slay, an unbelievable job on the back end. That's why he's such a pro.
Slay.
That's Mike Quick. Not doing an imitation of like a 12-year-old girl after seeing their friend do something cool. Just saying one of the great cornerbacks of his era, Darius Slay, making a big-time play. Merrill Reese on WIP. Man, the Eagles could have lost this game. I can't believe it. I was really tempted to make the highlight play. Xavier Legette having a chance on a dime from Bryce Young with about 45 seconds to go. He was going to catch the ball right near the goal line. It goes through his hands. It was the right call. But that was the difference between the Eagles, having to score a field goal in about 30 seconds left and just getting that victory. 22-16. They survive. Patrick, you watched this game closely. What stands out the most to you?
What stands out to me was I assumed that the windows, and Bryce Young has been completing passes in very tight windows, I assumed that they would be closed. I didn't know that Bryce's real talent that separates him in anticipation would help against this Philadelphia Eagles defense coached by Vic Fangio. I was wrong. As much as I believe in Bryce Young, I did not think that they would be in this game late, especially considering the Panthers' run defense and just how bad it has been. But Philadelphia couldn't sustain drives. Some interesting sacks taken by Jalen Hurts where the pressure is getting to him, and he just decides to turtle up, I guess perhaps being too careful with the football. But you mentioned it. There was a 4th down where, just like last week, Bryce has to have anticipation, hit Adam Thielen on the sideline. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was the same play where Adam Thielen converts a 4th down, and they set it up perfectly. Xavier Legette comes open. I'm going to have to check Next Gen Stats to see how often he's running right to left. Maybe a lack of confidence in that direction is what causes him to dive for the football. When if he just keeps his stride, he walks into the end zone on a game winner in the closing moments.
And a beautiful throw, too. That would have been the moment. And it wouldn't have been a game winner. It would have been about 45 seconds left for the Eagles to get the ball back with one. Just saying, to take the lead.
Yeah, and anything could happen at that point. But it's I know the Panthers are probably tired of moral victories, but they added another one today.
Yeah, and Philadelphia stays alive for their bid to get that 1 seed. Detroit, with all these tough games down the stretch, including the Bills coming up next week, someone there is going to be disappointed. The Eagles have the same record as the Vikings. I don't know if you would say there's concerns about the passing game. Okay, there are concerns. If A.J. Brown has concerns, I'm concerned. Let's listen to A.J. Brown after the game.
Offense wasn't good enough. What are some things you think that the offense needs to improve on? Passing.
AJ, I know everybody wants to get in a rhythm. Devontae was acknowledging that. You know, receivers, just like running backs, want to get in rhythm. How hard is it as a receiver to get into a rhythm when you guys are only throwing the ball like 20 times?
Incredibly tough.
I don't know what that song was in the background. That was Elliott Shore Parks, his video there. Great job, great questions. Both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith after the game were pretty frustrated, according to the reporters there, considering they won. Both had 4 catches, Brown for 43 yards, Devonta Smith for 37. The Eagles had 83 net passing yards today. And
not good.
If it was like a 1-week thing, then I don't think you'd see that frustration boiling over. But the passing game has been disjointed, I would say, for the last 3 to 4 weeks. I don't think it's fair to put it on the running game that somehow the running game's fault that the passing game's disjointed. It's just not. It's not quite all the way there. Are you concerned at all about that, Shook?
Yes, because the only time I've found that they've succeeded through the air has been when they've gone up tempo. And they only do that in small stretches in games. They did that, I think, last week. And that's usually what unlocks it. And what it ends up being is a lot of consecutive passes to A.J. Brown for 8, 10, 15 yards and moves the ball down the field. And it just happens for small periods in a game. It's not consistent. And I think that you kind of see both sides of what the Eagles are right now, which is like you have Saquon, who's a dog, who's a monster, who finishes games incredibly well, who puts another great stat line together today to bolster his MVP case. And then on the other side, you have the team that still can't throw the ball well. And so much that their top 2 receivers are visibly frustrated after a win. Like, music's playing in the locker room, and they're upset because they know that they're not where they could be right now. And I'm kind of concerned that with a month left now that they're maybe not going to figure it out because it's kind of endemic. Like, it's been most of the season has been like this, save for a few stretches there. I mean, I know they've won a ton of games in a row, but they haven't been perfect through the passing game for a long time. And it's been covered up by the fact they have Saquon and they have these small stretches. And when you get to the playoffs, suddenly if a team focuses all of its efforts on stopping Saquon, can you revive that passing game? It's just a small weakness in a team that I really highly regard right now, especially because of their defense, the way they played. Like, the fact that the Panthers pushed them to the limit doesn't concern me. It's how their offense is operating right now and looking ahead. That's what worries me.
Overall, I think because the Eagles are going to lead the league in angry wins like forever. That's just
the Chiefs thing this year, but fair.
Both of them, 2 very good football teams, decidedly different levels of frustration in the fan bases after wins. The Panthers had the ball for 33 minutes in this game. I mean, the Eagles were 7 of 12 on third down. Jalen Hurts only threw the ball 21 times, right? So Saquon got 20 carries. They're just. I know AJ and Devontae and everybody wants the ball more.
Yeah, but 21 times means he was sacked how many times in this game? 4 by the Panthers, which is not a good. So that's 25 dropbacks for 83 yards. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, no, it's not ideal. But what I'm saying is, I think it's not a panic button type situation. The Panthers have been in close games with good teams here. They were on the road. Bryce played well. They had an opportunity to win the game. The Eagles still won. They're 11-2. It's okay.
It was an ultimate spot for a bit of a letdown game. They've had a lot of big time games in a row against good, important competition. They have a tough Steelers game next week, and it was a big win to try to batten down this NFC East title because you just kind of assume at this point they're going to win it. They're up to 97% to win the NFC East, so still very important that they got it done. I do think the key factor here is they haven't had the trio, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert on the same field at the same time very often. And there isn't a bigger cliff in terms of from your third target to your fourth. And now that you take Goddard out of there, than there is on this Eagles team. And so I think it's easier to roll your coverages to the 2 wide receivers. Grant Calcaterra is their third leading receiver. They never have found a third wide receiver. And Goddard surprisingly got put on IR. I did not know his injury was that serious. So he's out at least the next 4 weeks. I think there is hope that he'll be back potentially for the playoffs, but he is not going to be helping them until week 18 at the very earliest. Still, they get out of there with the win. And yeah, the Panthers, they hold on to their spot in Tankathon. It's crowded. There's 8 teams with either 2 or 3 wins. So it's crowded at the bottom, and a 4th win would have put them in a bad spot. And yeah, how about Adam Thielen goes over 100 yards once again? That was the Sunday Drive presented by the all-new hybrid Toyota Camry. Whatever your vibe, it's a Camry vibe. Learn more at toyota.com/Camry. So we mentioned the Falcons lost a little earlier. The Bucs coming off their bye in this incredibly soft portion of their schedule. Could they take advantage against the Raiders?
6 yards to hang on to it, get a fresh set of downs. 3rd down and 6, shotgun look. It's outside pass. Caught by McMillan to the 20. Outside the numbers 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Fire the cannons. That's the dagger, the final nail. And the Raiders will go home without a win today.
That's right, Gene Deckerhoff. My man on WFUS. If it's a Bucs highlight, it's usually a short Baker Mayfield pass that beautifully blocked and a lot of yards after the catch. It's just a fact. Mayfield goes for 295, 3 touchdowns. Does have a couple interceptions, and the Raiders hang around longer than expected because the Bucs had such a quick lead in this game. But the Bucs win 28-13. They are 7-6, and they have sole possession of first place in the NFC South. Shook, any concern that they didn't put it away earlier, or do you like what you saw out of the Bucs?
Well, first off, long live the chief Baker Mayfield hater, Gregg Rosenthal. Glad you are still atop your throne. That was great. Nice little dig there. And some of it's valid because Baker is doing what we've talked about in recent weeks, which is kind of like running out of time. His internal clock has gone off, but he refuses to give up on plays, and it's producing mistakes. It's producing an interception in the end zone just before half. Really nice play by Claybon to make a pick earlier in the game on a short pass. He tipped up in the air into himself for the interception. But Baker also fumbles possession away. It's just not very clean. It's not consistent. And for a while, we could blame it on the fact he didn't have Mike Evans. Well, Mike Evans is back, and he comes in and out of the picture sometimes. They were just talking about on the broadcast how he leaned so much on him, but he wasn't really making much of a difference. He hits him for a pass that I think they end up turning the ball over on that series. So it's not as consistent as I would like to see from them, and yet they still win the game. They played with their food for like 2.5 quarters in this game today because they knew they were playing the Raiders. They went out to a 14-0 lead. The Raiders made it interesting and made it 14-10. They scored off of a turnover. And then for a while, they were just kind of trading mistakes until one team decided, you know what, let's finish this thing off. I would like to see the Bucs be a more dominant team against a lowly team like the Raiders than they were on Sunday. That starts at quarterback. They also lost Bucky Irving in this game to injury. Rashad White, finishes the job 17 for 90 and a touchdown. It just wasn't the resounding win I was looking for. It's still a win. That's fine. I might be splitting hairs here. But as we get into the stretch run of the season here and they're really trying to finish off this comeback in the NFC South, I'm going to need to see more consistency from this offense. And it starts again with the quarterback, who is a never say die guy, but might need to learn how to give up on a play or two along the way.
Yeah, there was a sequence there in the second half where Jack Jones gets called for pass interference, and they go right back at Jack Jones. Very aggressively does Baker Mayfield. And this is in the red zone. Jack Jones picks it off. The Raiders,
my guy.
The Raiders in this game until Aiden O'Connell gets a very late hit by Kalijah Cansey. Pushed from behind, leaves the game in an air cast. And then once it's Desmond Ridder time, essentially the game's going to be over no matter what. The Bucs still had to get yards and points in the second half to win. There was a Mike Evans 39-yard catch that ultimately took him to, I think, 69 yards, just barely locking up my write this down, just barely.
Your prop on game debut, very good.
So I thought Big Mike was going to get the 95 or so he needs to average. Did not finish with that because there's some issues in this pass game, Greg. And I don't know if it's Bucky Irving not necessarily being there. They've had injuries be huge this season. They can't quite get all the pieces together. But when they do, they look good. They didn't look good today.
I mean, they had 7.1 yards per play. They get over 400 yards in the end. The opening script counts too, and Liam Cohen has been among the best in the league at that. They seem to start their games so fast, and their running game being able to get a big run out of Sean Tucker and survive when Bucky Irving goes down is big. Yeah, we're probably getting Desmond Ridder for a month now, which is crazy that the Raiders have to play 4 more games in this season. Like, I was thinking with some of these games we have coming up, we haven't gotten to the dregs yet, but it's like you would you would want, like, it'd be fine to just sim their seasons to the end. They don't need to play.
Yeah.
But they have to play these other teams that do matter, and that would be a competitive balance problem. So Desmond Ritter's going to play. I guess the positive, if you're a Ritter head or a Raiders fan, his numbers were almost identical to Aiden O'Connell. O'Connell, 11 for 19 for 104. Ritter, 12 for 18 for 101. Maybe they're just kind of the same.
But we did have Aiden O'Connell's first career scramble yard. Came on a 4-yard jaunt for a first down. The play took about 10 seconds, but he got it. Aiden O'Connell has scrambled.
Well, it feels like a Pyrrhic victory on a day where his leg exploded, unfortunately.
Get well soon, AC.
Yeah, get better. Shout out to Michael Mayer, too, who had personal troubles earlier this season, was out for personal reasons for a long time. I know there was concern about him. Now he's coming back, and he's playing good football. 7 for 68 there. They are at 2-11. And like I said, the Bucs in first place in the NFC South. I don't think they're necessarily playing any better, Shook. They just got the soft part of their schedule and have taken care of it. To their credit, 3-0. They get a tougher game in L.A. next week. And in the locker room afterwards, they were blaring going back to Cali immediately. So they couldn't even enjoy this win. They were already thinking about next week. That's what winners do.
What version of it was it? Was that the Biggie Smalls one or the lesser known LL Cool J song that my mom loves to reference all the time?
It was Biggie. I'm assuming.
Okay,
it's Biggie.
good.
I assume so, but I'm old enough that I don't think of that as necessarily the lesser known.
Oh, it's the superior version.
It's definitely superior. All right, you know what else is superior? The Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's talk about them a little bit after the break. Yes, Shook watched his favorite team, the Brownies, face the Steelers for the second time in 3 weeks. Back in a minute.
Calvin Austin in motion left to right. Wilson gets a snap. Back looking to fire over the middle of the field. And it is complete. It is a touchdown. Pittsburgh Steelers. Pat Freiermuth makes the reception and boots the ball up into the stands here at Acrisure Stadium.
Oh, yeah. What a great job getting inside position on the defensive back. Then being able to score on that nice scorching, smoking ball thrown by Russ.
That is Craig Wolfley. We didn't get Ron, his brother, on the show earlier, but we got Craig in there. Rob King on the call as well for WDVE. The Steelers get a 27-14 victory over the Browns. It takes a little while for this Steelers machine to get going, but did you really think that Mike Tomlin was going to let this team lose to the Browns twice in 3 weeks? No, it's not going to happen. And ultimately, Shook, it was pretty comfortable for a Steelers win.
Yeah, they they got off to a slow start. Early punt, Jameis Winston makes a nice throw to Jerry Jeudy for a touchdown, and then they just kind of settled in and became the Steelers again. You know, this is a game, we're coming off of a 400-yard performance from Russell Wilson, so everybody's focusing on the Steelers offense and how suddenly explosive they can be with Russ. And Russ is having a great stretch of football, and he had another strong game today. But he finished with 158 passing yards. This game was won by their defense. This game was won by Alex Highsmith, by TJ Watt, by Cam Hayward. You could just name all the guys down the list. They made play after play. They capitalized on Jameis Winston risks. They picked him off. Every time the Browns looked like they might have had a shot to get back into the game, including when Dustin Hopkins missed 2 field goals, the Steelers just took advantage and ran away with it. But Russ is playing, again, some very solid football, some very high-quality football, making passes like that to Pat Freiermuth. It's become a treat. Like, as somebody who watched the slow decline of Russ in Seattle and Denver, I thought he was done, and watching him fit in this offense and the way that it operates and how balanced they are, because they can run the ball effectively well too. Even if the numbers don't show it, they can. It's really fun to watch them. They're a damn good football team. There's nothing I can say about it than that.
Okay, but every game, I happen to text with like a Russ hater where it's like every game they think it's their game to finally start enjoying like Russ struggling, and it always it seems like it starts that way half the time, except for against the Bengals. Like at one point he had dropped back like 16 times and they had 46 yards and they were just punting and he was making, bad decisions and stuff. And they always seem to figure it out. To their credit, like what do you think it was that changed in this game for the Browns, other than maybe it was just opportunity that the Browns defense could only hold up for so long and the Steelers just kept getting the ball back to them?
Yeah, I hate to say it because it sounds super cliche, but halftime adjustments. Like Russ gets to halftime And he's completed a grand total of 8 passes on 16 attempts for 46 yards. The Steelers, as an offense, have 127 net yards. The Browns only had 124, and yet the Steelers had found a way to take a 13-7 lead because their defense had given them short fields. Third quarter arrives. Russ completes 6 of 8 for 91 and 2 touchdowns, and suddenly it's a landslide victory for them. He figured it out. A lot of that is the adjustments, figuring out what Jim Schwartz is doing, how to capitalize. And then by the fourth quarter, you have Grant Delpit looking up to the sky, just wondering, why, God, why is this happening to us again? The Cleveland Browns, a team that fights hard. I give them credit. They fight hard, even when they have pretty much nothing to play for, no matter what Kevin Stefanski says on Hard Knocks in season with the AFC North. Because we're in the playoffs now. No, your season's over.
Well, that was when they technically had not been eliminated, I think was his point.
Yeah, but you knew what they needed, and it was
they
unlikely.
had to run the table at that point. I did finally get around to watching that, and there were more interesting moments in the first 10 minutes of AFC North Hard Knocks than the entire Bears season. It's not even close. I would say that one episode was worth more than the entire last 2 to 3 Hard Knocks, like the one since Dan Campbell, basically.
Yeah, when you have stakes.
I know, but we've seen in-season Hard Knocks before, and they haven't been as good. They had really good access. I'm just saying it was good.
Yeah.
Hearing this music, I feel like I need to give a speech that's going to end with like a great clincher, like Mike Tomlin did at the start of that episode.
I have to...
so many speeches. I want to have an ex-player on to talk about, is it that necessary to have this many speeches?
I think producers like speeches.
I know that from the Hard Knocks perspective, they're fantastic. I'm saying, you're those players, right? How many speeches have you heard Zach Taylor say? How many is he making every week? Because we see at least 2 or 3. I mean, just imagine if when we came to work, there was like 5 speeches a week, minimum. I mean, because the position coaches, there's like 5 speeches a day. I think the new efficiency, the money ball in the NFL would be like, let's cut down on the speeches a little bit.
All right, guys. Here's what we're facing today: an ever-changing media landscape. Yeah, that would probably drone on just a touch.
Greg, when you hired me 10 years ago, my first day in LA, if I walked in the newsroom and you gave me one of those speeches, I'd be like, maybe I shouldn't have done this.
It might be good, to be honest. Maybe we could use a little more. One or 2 speeches a year in the NFL Daily world would be better than none. But they have like 15 a week. Anyways,
yeah.
Hard Knocks, great stuff. When I was watching that, you can't understand, not that you couldn't just without seeing it, but you can't understand, oh, well, that's why Mike Tomlin's teams only go so low.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? His attention to detail and keeping the team together is such a unique combination. It's pretty special.
Yeah, and a bunch of guys that know what they're doing, can execute to a high level, and there's really never a glaring deficiency. And then on the other side, the Browns trying to figure things out. Positive for the Browns. This is, I think, the best Nick Chubb has looked since he returned from his injury. Some of the explosion was back. Of course, Nick Chubb, otherworldly athlete. It's going to take time to try to get back to that. But a solid performance, 4 yards, 4+ yards per carry against a good defense. The Browns just overmatched here.
And I will say, I think the Jerry Jeudy trade is going to pay off for them. Like the stretch he's had the last couple of games, really since Jameis has come in, he's looked like the guy that I think they thought they were getting, and he's going to be a key piece of their future, even in a down season.
Speaking of which, let's listen to Andrew Siciliano's call, just because he's our buddy, and he's going to be on NFL Daily on Thursday night, recapping that Rams 49ers game, but he was in Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Ford the back, Winston the gun, has the ball, steps up in the pocket, he may run, now throwing, what's Jeudy, has it, touchdown, Jerry Jeudy, 35 yards, Jameis on the run, as he got to the line of scrimmage, let it go, Jeudy caught it at the 5 and waltzed into the end zone.
The Jameis creation plays have been surprising. I've been a Jameis fan for a while, and he's not a guy who makes a lot of plays on the run, and he's done that this year, and the Lord did listen because he delivered him from pick sixes today. Just 2 regular old interceptions, but no pick sixes. Interestingly, Kevin Stefanski would not commit to Jameis Winston being the starter next week after the game, so we might be seeing some DTR. I don't know if he was just answering it vaguely. We'll see. We might be seeing some DTR at some point. And I did want to point out this note from Bill Barnwell. Kadarius Toney played only 2 snaps in the fourth quarter, both on special teams. On one of them, he did a fair catch and then was flagged for taunting after the fair catch. That's a first. They were down multiple scores at the time. The other play he was in on the fourth quarter, he muffed a punt, and the Steelers recovered. Let's go to the last game here before we get to Sunday Night Football, at least, that involves a team still in the playoff mix. Yes, the Browns are officially eliminated. Would the Jets be officially eliminated on Sunday by the Dolphins?
Tango Vailoa out of the shotgun, back to throw. Good protection, throws it, end zone, touchdown, Dolphins win. Jonnu Smith.
What a catch and throw, Jonnu Smith holds on to it. What a throw by Tua. Good night. Dolphins got to win.
I love the Dolphins song. I don't know the words, but I love how they play it right away, and all the fans know it, and they sing it, and people don't even know about it. It's a cool little thing they got going down there in Miami. They're getting some wins. That was Jimmy Cefalo and Joe Rose on WBGG. Yes. What a comeback. Not just the Dolphins coming back to win this game at the very end to force overtime. They were also trailing 23-15 heading into the fourth quarter. But how about this miracle comeback for Jonnu Smith? No catches in fantasy in regulation, and he finishes with 3 for 44 and a touchdown on one OT drive. And yes, what a comeback for me and my picks on the Picks Show, because I took Miami -5.5. You didn't think it could happen, but they somehow got into overtime, and they covered that score. And so I'm sure there were a lot of people out there with some money on Miami. They got it going. And our Survivor
Cue
pick.
the music. No, Greg has to think about his pick. But I have to remind Greg that he's on a team. He, Steve Weish, and myself are on a legendary run from Survivor picks. And we, together everyone achieves more, Greg. We survive because Tua, I guess Coach Mike Mack, remembered that, hey, Jonnu Smith is a huge part of this team. In overtime, one of the first plays, they throw out the quick screen to Jonnu Smith, gets several yards on a first down. So what do? They go right back to the same exact play. Jonnu Smith pops up, starts screaming in everyone's faces, where it's like, all right, Jonnu mode has been engaged, and it leads to the game-winning touchdown. But as you mentioned, Greg, it took a lot to get there. They're down late. The Jets outgained them. 402 yards to 375. They almost doubled them in rush yardage. They held defense to 1 of 9 on third down. But still, on that second-to-last drive, Tua Tagovailoa hooking up with Tyreek Hill, who wasn't on the field on the fourth down attempt in Green Bay on Thanksgiving. They go to Tyreek on fourth down, runs in, then back out. Tua hits him. And then Jalen Waddle runs the exact same route on the 2-point conversion. They tie the ball game up. The Jets sprint down the field for a go-ahead field goal, but then they don't cover the kickoff return. They get a 48-yard return, leading to Jason Sanders sending the game to overtime, and Aaron Rodgers and company never saw the ball because of that Jonnu Smith takeover that we just heard.
Yeah, there were so many mistakes by the Jets at the end of this game, and I saw the Aaron Rodgers quote where he said there's blame to go around. You know, we needed to score 30 in this game, which is his typically passive-aggressive way of putting it a little bit on the defense. Aaron Rodgers in the offense lost this game despite it being one of their best games of the season, in part because of how they handled the situation at the end of the game. They had a first and 10 with 1:14 left at the 27-yard line in a tie game, and they wound up only burning another 30 seconds, not even off the clock, before they had to kick a field goal. They lose 5 yards on a run, disaster, timeout by Miami. Rodgers takes a sack, disaster, timeout by Miami. But at that point, Miami only has one timeout left, or no timeouts left, rather. That was the last timeout. And they throw a sideline route to Adams to set up a shorter field goal, but they stop the clock right there with plenty of time for Tua to go back down off the field, especially after that long kick return. And yeah, it's been a story of the Jets season. If it's not one thing, it's the other. They actually got a good performance out of their offense for much of the day. But I thought on that, a couple of these plays, Rodgers missed open receivers. And I like it because, like I said, I want more teams that are alive. The Jets have been eliminated. They have not made the playoffs for 14 straight years. They are one of 6 AFC teams to be eliminated. Only one NFC team has been eliminated. That's the Giants. Even the Panthers are technically alive because of the division. But the Dolphins are at least a little bit in the mix here at 6-7. There's a faint heartbeat, even if I can't take them seriously, because they have no running game and their defense really isn't that good either.
Yeah, remember that brief period a few weeks ago where we're like, oh, the defense is coming around. Maybe they can actually put it together. Look at them, what they did to the Rams. Well, they've won 4 of their last 5. Okay,
Yep.
So that's great. That's a start. Now you play Houston, San Francisco, Cleveland, and the Jets again. And the Jets are going to have absolutely nothing to play for in January. Granted, it's going to be cold, and we know the Dolphins don't like the cold, so we'll see how that game pans out. But, yeah, none of these games have really been convincing, all these wins. I mean, the win over the Patriots was, I guess, but, I haven't seen them necessarily show me what I needed to see, but they're still so much better than where they were without Tua that I'm going to take them seriously for the rest of the run. A, because it's fun to watch. B, because it ends up in thrilling finishes like the one on Sunday. And C, they could have a terrible game and still win and then send the interim coach on the other sideline into just complete apoplectic mode. He just has no idea what to say. He's just, wow, our defense played well. They went 1 for 9 on 3rd down. We still lost in overtime. I have no answers. This is a dark season for the Jets. But I like the intrigue. I like the intrigue with the Dolphins because I think that they're a better team than their record suggests. They got some unfortunate injury luck. Their defense is not good enough, but they're still fun to watch. So it's going to be very intriguing to see what they do.
Yeah, a similar type performance to in pieces without the catastrophic mistakes that they made in Green Bay. They get the 4th down touchdown. That's a high leverage play. Of course, the entire situation, even getting the ball back, might not have happened. But Tua goes 33 of 47, 331. Tyreek gets 14 targets. He catches 10 of them. Waddle gets 12. He catches 9 of them. This is the team that we thought they could be, except we thought they'd be able to run the ball. We haven't seen the Jets really stop anybody.
Right.
They won despite of that.
Right. The Dolphins are the most consistent team that I've watched over the last 7 weeks. They are the exact same team every week. They can't run the ball. Tua's incredibly efficient, is playing at a really high level, and the defense is below average and gives up long drive after long drive no matter who the opponent is. It gets worse against a really good team like Green Bay, but it's pretty bad each week. So as much as Tua's injury sunk this season, I don't know what the ceiling for this team was anyways. It was probably a 6 or a 7 seed and not really being in the mix in the AFC, but at least they get to
10
play
wins.
Yeah, meaningful games for another couple of weeks. We cannot say the same about the teams in our next 2 games. Let's go to Tennessee.
They run it with Bigsby again to the left side. He gets loose. He's into the end zone. Touchdown. Tank Bigsby has scored on an inside handoff, and the Jaguars have taken the lead with 6:46 to play in the ball game.
The Jaguars are off the mat. Mac Jones, big time play. No, that was Tank Bigsby. He goes 18 for 55 and a touchdown. The Jaguars get a win in Tennessee, 10-6 over the Titans. Both these teams 3-10, which feels about right. I thought the defining play offensively of this game was me watching Mac Jones slide on a 3rd and 13 scramble about 7 yards short of the first down. It's like, well, that's Titans Jaguars football. I thought it was maybe Will Levis getting absolutely destroyed on the last play of the first half. That felt unnecessary. Thankfully, he was able to stay in the game. It looked like he might have been hurt there off a big hit from Josh Hines. Allen, give me some positives for the Jags here, Patrick.
Positives is Josh Allen has a chance to get 3.5 sacks with the remainder of the season to tie his Jags single-season record.
Okay.
Around 17 sacks for him. Really,
Brian Thomas, I'll answer my own question.
Okay.
Got a ton of targets down the stretch.
I needed help there.
Yeah, I'm just saying. They finally started feeding him the ball down the stretch of this game. He goes 8 for 86. He is a real deal player. I might take him over Marvin Harrison Jr. to go back to that right now. That's how good Brian Thomas Jr. has looked.
The Jags were able to keep Nick Westbrook-Akine out of the end zone on a key 4th down where maybe, in hindsight, the Titans would have made a different decision about the play calling on that drive. But, the Tank Bigsby call that you guys heard, that was it. That was the touchdown. It wasn't just a touchdown. That was the touchdown in this game where there wasn't a lot of points to speak of, not a lot of plays, and it's not, great defense from both teams, just a couple of offenses that were fairly inept. and a couple of teams that are now 3-10.
Yeah, it was supposed to be an evaluation for Will Levis down the stretch here, and it's been better. But Brian Callahan was asked, after the game, after starting his press conference, by saying of all the positives, trying to keep it positive, talking about his defense and a few other things. And then the first question to him was, you just didn't score a touchdown against the last ranked defense in the NFL, and your first reaction is all the positives that were from this game, which is just a brutal spot. The Titans are 6th right now in Tankathon. Jacksonville is 5th. Anything you want to throw in here, Shook?
We're on 1,000-yard Tony Pollard watch.
Okay.
He's closing in. He's inside 100. Greg, you've talked about it many times, and I've enjoyed watching it as well. Is playing like one of the better running backs in the NFL, despite being on this team. And on the Jack side, congrats on keeping Nick Westbrook-Akine out of the end zone, because he's actually been the guy making touchdown catches for them recently.
Okay, so there you go.
This is the AFC South, baby. 10-6 your final right there.
Man, and Mac Jones, it's just so funny how bad his body language is when he's not happy about the play calls that are coming in. It's just like, you got to get rid of that man. Like he looked so annoyed at Doug Peterson. I can just imagine like the mutual annoyance
disdain
between those two men as they close out this season. But they get a win on a day in Duval where the defense did show up. Let's go to MetLife Stadium, where my friend Adam from the Saints Block Party podcast was in the crowd.
Oh.
Would he see a victory out of his Saints?
This is his first opportunity between 30 and 35 to tie the game with 11 seconds, and it's low. I don't think the Saints got it. I think the Saints got a piece of it. Missed it. Graham Gano. It came out like a wounded duck.
It looked like they rushed the mechanics of it. It looked like the Giants literally rushed the mechanics of it, and I don't know if it was a high kick. The Saints did jump over the line to kind of rush it, but he just missed it.
That was Deuce McAllister, one of my all-time favorite Saints, along with Mike Haas on WWL. Yes, Brian Brissy. What an athletic play from a man that's got to be pushing 3 bills, jumping over the snapper and blocking that field goal at the end. Now, I'm not saying the Giants are trying to lose, but if you were trying to lose, kind of messing up the final field goal operation at the end would be the way to do it.
Michael Gobriel is the special teams coordinator for the Giants, who brought this play into the NFL in that win against the Seattle Seahawks. It's Dexter Lawrence holding the guard down and Isaiah Simmons jumping over him. We saw Myles Garrett do it. We've seen teams try this. If anybody is aware that this is a possibility, it's the Giants and Brian Brissy. God bless him, is vertical. Again, 29 inches is a great vertical. It's not Isaiah Simmons or Myles Garrett. He's able to get over and through and just get enough of the kick. But I wasn't thinking about that until you said it, Greg. The Giants should have known that this was a possibility. Have your guard bow up a little bit.
Great call by you. I mean, that's the only kind of insight you can get on NFL Daily. And yes, Brissy is over 305 pounds. Coming on strong lately. He's a guy that hunts big plays, and so he gives up a lot of big plays, and I think he sometimes flashes more than he is a winning player. But over the last month, he's been better. He had 2 quarterback hits in this game, 2 pass breakups. The Saints were crazy getting after Drew Lock in this game. They had 13 quarterback hits and 13 PBUs on Drew Lock. Drew Lock missed his first 9 throws in this game. It was the first time since Drew Lock's old teammate, Kendall Hinton, who's not a real NFL quarterback, started a game with 9 straight incompletions. He was 6 for 19 for 52 yards at halftime. The Giants only had 3 points in their first 10 drives. And yet, they were right there on the doorstep from winning this game with 2 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes because the Saints offense was barely any better. Unfortunately, Derek Carr left the game with an injury very late, so that their offensive struggles were with him in the game. In fact, his replacement, Jake Haener, didn't even throw a pass. He just came in and handed it off twice and took a sack in his one series before the Giants got that last chance. So we'll see if Carr can return. They were checking him for a head injury, and then our guys at NFL Network, I believe, reported a broken bone in his non-throwing hand. So we don't know what his status will be. But the Saints are 5-8, and the Giants, disappointed, I'm sure, at the end, but they hold on to the number 2 pick, according to Tankathon. The Raiders, Shook, are right now in the 1 spot. The Raiders have lost 9 straight. The Giants have lost 8 straight. That's tough. The Bears have lost 7 straight, by the way. They were 4-2 at one point. That's crazy.
I mean, anytime you go into a game with Drew Lock as your leading rusher, it's not going to be good for the Giants. We know who they are right now. And there's not much good to say about either team, but the Saints and Derek Carr, I'm like, Claybon, I need help here. I don't have anything good to say about either team. Really.
I watched this game quite closely. I never will again. Chase Young had about 1 million quarterback pressures in this game, was all over Lock. The way I would describe Drew Lock's first 3 quarters of this game was every decision he made was bad. It was the wrong one. Like, there was one play where he's scrambling, and he is fast. It's kind of like an internet joke going out there that they show the white-looking Mike Vick on Madden meme every time Drew Lock is running, and he ends up with 59 yards. And he's faster than I remember, but he's fast as hell. But he had a first down just sitting right in front of him on a 3rd and like 7, and then for some reason he tries to beat 2 guys around the edge that he has no chance to do, and ends up like just gaining 1 yard in the play when it was there. So it's just like every decision was bad, and then he almost led them to a comeback at the end because the Saints, they just, I don't know, they look for ways to win games. The most memorable part of this game was Darren Rizzi absolutely upbraiding his punter after what was a punt return touchdown called back by penalty that the Giants had, but he was just screaming at his punter for so long that Alvin Kamara had to come in and kind of separate it and stop it. Like, because I was about to call HR. Like, it wasn't right what was going on between Rizzi and this young punter. It was too much.
And it's almost, and this is a rookie, and I don't think Darren Rizzi is spending that much time in any other place.
Well, he's a special teams guy. Yeah, I mean, so it's his guy, but
it's like, at what point are we working? Are we hustling backwards?
Yeah,
and Alvin
but special teams coordinators like that, they're known for that. Like, they're always the craziest coach on staff.
This was next level by Rizzi, and I have a feeling he will be, saying maybe he needs to come.
Oh, he did, and he credited Alvin in the post game for coming over and settling him down.
It felt like he was taking out other frustrations maybe that were going on in this game, like watching this offense in the running game. It was tough, but yes, the Saints get the victory. Let's go to a much more important game on Sunday night in Arrowhead. We say goodbye to Patrick Claybon, and yes, we will remember this Sunday for so many things, but more than anything, Patrick, for your genius Rams pick.
Hey, I did something right.
All right.
Let it be known.
To Sunday night.
A 31-yard attempt by Matthew Wright to try to win the game. Ariza will hold. Winchester will snap. Chargers are out of timeouts. Winchester snaps it. Placement is down. Wright's kick is up, and the kick is good! 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 And the Kansas City Chiefs do it again. The 3rd kicker this season to have a walk-off field goal. And this one wins the game 19-17 and gives the Chiefs 9 consecutive AFC West championships.
9 straight division titles for the Kansas City Chiefs. That is Mitch Holtis, WDAF, for a minute. Not even a minute. A fraction of a second. You thought, oh, the Chiefs actually got unlucky for once. That thing hit the crossbar. They're going to lose at the last second on a crazy, fluky special teams play, but no. Matthew Wright's kick hits hard off that upright. It bounces all the way to the other side. It goes through 19-17. Shooky. It turns out the Chiefs can keep getting away with this, actually. And they will continue to.
Yeah, and everybody else is just going to have to accept it that if Patrick Mahomes has the ball with 4 minutes left and he's down by a point, he's going to find a way to convert every third down that you think is impossible. The pass rush is collapsing around him. He's going to find somebody open. He's going to make a jump pass. He's going to lure 4 defenders in his face and find Travis Kelce for a first down. Y'all just have to accept it. I'm tired of hearing you complain about it. The refs had nothing to do with it. This is just Chiefs magic.
Okay, this one felt a little different to me. Absolutely heartbreaking if you root for the Chargers. But a game I thought was pretty evenly played between the two teams. Obviously, the Chiefs defense dominating the first half and the Chargers quickly responding in a back and forth game. But the Chiefs get the ball, as you mentioned, with under 5 minutes to go. And Mahomes earned every bit of that last drive. The 3rd and 10 where he's scrambling around and making it happen before getting Worthy to start the drive. The scramble, and then the decision coming out of the 2-minute warning. The Chiefs have the ball with a 3rd and 7. They could run the ball there and kick the go-ahead field goal, but that clock will leave about 1:20 for Justin Herbert to go possibly respond. But instead, Andy Reid does give Patrick Mahomes, his guy, the option to throw, and he made it count.
Mahomes under center, takes the snap. He's back. He's rolling to his right. He's looking. He pumps. He's going to pull the football down. Now throws, and it's caught by Kelce on a knee with the first down at the 11. A 9-yard gain and a first down for the Chiefs. Just when I thought Mahomes was going to run, he saw Kelce and dumps it off to him for a first down.
That play looked like it was done, and as we've seen it so many times before, Mahomes draws up the extra defender by looking like he's going to run, manages to throw across his body. That was Westwood 1, Ryan Radke, and that's why this one, to me, felt like a lot of Chargers-Chiefs game, but it wasn't the Chargers making some huge boneheaded error at the end. It wasn't the Chiefs getting lucky on that drive. It was just the Chiefs' offense having a good drive when they absolutely needed it. They barely had the ball in the second half, but they needed to get points on that drive. They got it, and they're the best at that end-of-game situation. Their EPA per play shook on those 3rd and 4th downs and late and close situations is the highest in the league. Like, they're proving they can do it week after week, and they did it again.
Yeah, and it starts with the quarterback. I mean, I've recently had a harder time keeping him up there, but this is why QB Index Patrick Mahomes has been in the top 5 all year. It's not pretty. The statistics don't tell you that he's throwing for 400 yards a game or whatever, but he does stuff like that, and that's a rare ability. There are a lot of guys that cannot make that happen, but because he is playing quarterback for the Chiefs, and it might sound like a broken record, totally fine, he is one of the very few who can get that job done consistently under pressure, and even he knows it. He completes that pass to Kelce we just saw in that clip there, and he's bobbing his head, nodding his head. Yeah, I'm still the man. I still did this, and that's why they're so difficult to beat. But you're right. It did feel the Chargers earned their place in this game. Like, when they went into the second half, you're listening to Collinsworth the first couple minutes of the third quarter talking about how what are your options available? They've gotten like no first downs in the whole first half. You have no running game to speak of, so play action's gone. And then they're just like, screw it. We're going to commit to the run. And they're just going to keep pounding the run, stubbornly so. And it opened up the offense. And Justin Herbert was able to work. And we got a hell of a game as a result.
It was a really great game because of the contrast between the two halves. The Chargers get 6 drives, which is a ton, in the first half. They don't score a single point, 5 straight punts, and then they can't capitalize at the end of the half. They only 2 of those drives go over 30 yards. One goes for 50. So they didn't do anything. And then the second half, yes, they set it up by putting those extra blockers in and getting some outside runs going. But they also hit some 3rd and longs. They hit a 4th down to Palmer, I believe it was, where it was a pass call. It was a gutsy call. A 3rd and long. Stone Smart gets very active. I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah and Matt Money Smith on the radio, and coming out of halftime, they're like, we need to get Stone Smart more into the game because he's the most athletic pass catcher they have, and they just need some juice. This Chargers offense, it just lacks juice. And without Ladd McConkey on the field, Stone Smart gets put in there because Will Dissly gets hurt. He has a shoulder injury and he never came back. And Smart has 3 big catches for 54 yards. So they were problem solving. And yeah, they get 2 straight touchdowns in such quick order and then get a 3-and-out from the Chiefs sandwich between that in the third quarter. And suddenly it's on. And after that, it was just 3 long field goal drives. So I think the Chargers are so close. It really is a good defense. Cam Hart made that play where he hit DeAndre Hopkins right near the goal line and made them kick a field goal there. They got 13 quarterback hits against Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs gave up, I think, 12 or 13 last week, too. So he's getting hit way too much. They were getting pressure on him. They just couldn't quite finish plays enough. But I actually think, man, you shouldn't be taking any moral victories. I'm now talking myself out of it. It's ridiculous. What are we talking about? Moral victories against the Chiefs when you can never win a game in this matchup. I thought they had a chance to cosmically turn it around and shook, and they didn't.
Well, they almost did, and they have to feel like little brother because of the position they've been in for the better part of the last decade, especially since Patrick Mahomes has been here. And I understand that. That's frustrating as can all it can be. But at the same time, you are 8-5, and you're still in a very good spot right now. You are a much better football team. You're a tougher football team. You tried to win the toughness battle, and you almost did. If anything, I think it was a stalemate in that department, and you just happened to not have the ball last because you couldn't get off the field. And I think that's all positive developments that you can take into this last month where you got to play Tampa, you got to play Denver, and then you play New England and the Raiders. So the last 2 games, I'm counting those as wins. You're looking at 10 wins. I didn't have this Chargers team as a 10-win team. That's pretty good. Not a moral victory because that's going to put you in a playoff role or like a spot maybe in contention. We'll see how it all shakes out. You're going to be in the mix, and that's way more than I think any of us expected, which is good.
Yeah, they should make the playoffs. According to Next Gen Stats, they have an 89% chance of making it. And what that assumes is, look, they're favorites against the Bucs. Not an easy game, but they're favorites. And they beat the Broncos already, so they have a tiebreaker over them, and they'll have a chance. They're right in it. But this would have just been, I think, because it's the Harbaugh era, it's new, and it would have maybe just
that would have been
like
a signature
they were
win.
more on equal footing, even though they weren't catching up. So tough day for Eric Roberts and the Bills fans out there who were hoping that they could get a little bit of help. Now that the Chiefs have a 2-game lead as the 1 seed, they're up to 81% chance. Feels like it'd be even higher for that to me to get that 1 seed, and the Chiefs make it happen. And even though there were some things to be concerned about for the Chiefs in this game, I mentioned the offensive line giving up all those hits. I do think they're a better offense with Pacheco. They had a lot of long drives in this game. That's what they do better than any team in the NFL. Shook, they actually have more plays per drive than any team since the 21 Chiefs in the NFL. So they know how to maintain the ball. They are a significantly better offense this year, no matter how you slice it, than last year. And they won the Super Bowl last year. So like they were a bad offense last year. You're giving me a funny look, but like
no, I'm just surprised that by some of the revelations within this. That's fine. I agree.
I mean, they're not perfect, but they're a good team, and
they're just methodical, and sometimes that doesn't impress people, and that's fine.
And they're getting it done, and they're getting players back healthy. Marquise Hollywood Brown is going to be back at some point, it sounds like, in the regular season. This was a fun recap show, Shooky. It's so fun. We should do it again tomorrow night.
Oh, you know what? I think we will. How about it? Make it a date.
All right. That's it. Play the music, Eric. Monday night, Bengals still alive for the playoffs, and the Cowboys. We'll have some fun. We're going to rank some Rookie of the Year candidates then. And, when the Chiefs are on their 3rd kicker in a month and they're just making the rest of the country go freaking crazy, you know football is back.